exactly what are we trying to measure? Part 2. So as we're trying to figure out what we're measuring with this particular rubric that we're building, we want to make sure that we spend the majority of our time on the performance level descriptions. Okay? These are essentially the columns across each row, each criteria, the criteria are the rows. The performance level descriptions are the columns across each one of those criteria. And so we wanted to spend a great deal of time with those descriptions. So the most critical part of writing a good rubric is that the levels of performance can be described with language that depicts what would be observed. Observed is critical here, in the student demonstration or performance of learning, rather than quality conclusions that can be drawn from their submission. We want to be able to observe these descriptors specifically in the student's demonstration of their learning. In most cases, we want general descriptions. Again, we don't want the count thing going on or very detailed pieces that we're looking for here. We want general descriptions of what we're looking for. You need to decide how many levels there need to be within your rubric. So essentially how many columns or how many different levels are going to be within your criteria. Use as many levels as you can. This is critical. Use as many levels as you can while keeping them distinct from each other with meaningful differences separating them. Okay? That's the critical step in this. And this might go just a little bit against that, but this is just a suggestion. Depending on the assignment type, you may want the number to correlate with your grading system. So you might want to have 5 performance levels across the top of your rubric: advanced, proficient, basic, below basic, and unacceptable. That would correlate to an A, B, C, D, F grading scale. Entirely up to you. I'm just throwing that out as a possibility for you. So as we go to write performance level descriptions, one method to begin this process is to begin with the performance level that you expect most students to reach. So for example, maybe you expect most students to reach the proficient level. That's what we want. We want all of our students to be proficient in every topic that we cover, right? We would like them to be exemplary, but we at least want them to be proficient. And describe what that looks like for each criterion that you have determined for your rubric already, the criterion that we already wrote. Okay? Another method is to start at the top category, including everything that you want to see as an exemplary example of a student submission, and then back off from there. Kind of go down in your expectations in each level. In a traditional grading system, this top category would represent A work, and that, of course, is above and beyond what is expected. That is exemplary work. Again, key process here in your thought process as you write these levels for your rubric. Use as many levels as you can while keeping them distinct from each other so that they don't overlap, with meaningful differences between the levels. Here's the again. Here is the performance description question that you want to ask yourself each time. What does student work look like? Again, what can I observe in their work at each level of quality from high to low within a particular criterion that you are writing these descriptors for? Okay, that's the big question here as you begin writing these. So let's look at an example. In my example, the university, Fresno Pacific University that you're taking this class with, has kind of a predetermined set of grades for everything that we turn in, at least your overall grade for the course. I could have split it up. In assignments, I can split it up really however I want to. I just chose to use the 3 grading categories for this particular example. So this was kind of already preset for me in a way. So I just kept the categories that the university has. Obviously, you can set up as many categories as you want, as long as they're distinct from each other, and you can show that distinction, that they are separated from each other. Okay, so as I build my rubric again, we already have all of the criteria that we're going to be using. We did that in the last topic, right? Now I want to start building the columns across, the descriptors, the different levels that I'm going to be reviewing and evaluating their work on. And so the very first one that the university has set up is excellent. And so for their scale, that would be A work. The next one is acceptable, because in these classes, actually only A and B work is accepted. There is no C in this class. If you are below acceptable, then you really are supposed to redo that assignment, resubmit it, and hopefully get a better grade. And so below acceptable, of course, is unacceptable. And most of those would be 0 grades to begin with until hopefully the student redoes the work and moves up into at least the acceptable category. So as we begin to write our descriptors here, we're going to start. I choose to use the method of starting with the excellent category first. And I'm going to build what an excellent example is of this particular assignment. So I'm going to build down the excellent column as we go here. All right? So for the very first criteria, writing and diagrams are clear and easy to read. That's pretty much what I'm looking for. So I just kind of copied and pasted that in. I want their writing and their diagrams to be very clear, very easy for me to understand and to read. If they're doing a graph or a diagram, it needs to be very clear, and an X and Y axis, and just clear. For the big one, the mathematics involved here, this is going to have much more in it, and so I want very thorough coverage of the math involved. I don't want, a lot of these students kind of skip steps in their work, and I don't want to see, a step and then some miracle happens and then the next step all of a sudden shows up. And so I want every step in the process to show up. So very thorough coverage of the math involved to solve the problem that the question asks, including providing an equation if possible, or other clear method of solving the problem, because part of this class is problem solving, and so we cover different methods of solving problems. So they could use one of those other methods if it's not an equation. A diagram is shown. If at all possible, in the real test, they want a diagram. So no errors within the work. Step-by-step process is clear and concise, not verbose, but concise. And the answer is clearly defined within their math. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for an excellent submission. The procedure of solving the problem is clearly explained using correct terminology and notation in their process. Each step is included. Now, you could probably make the argument here that there might be a little bit of overlap with this compared to the step before this, the mathematics involved. And that might be a good argument, and so we'll see how that develops as we look at this rubric further down in the course here. The solution, the correct solution is arrived at. That's what I want in an excellent example, right? I want them to come up with the correct answer of at least the problem they came up with, or the equation or whatever they came up with. Okay? And this is separate from the mathematics involved, because maybe they came up with wrong math or wrong problem. But here, maybe they came up with the wrong problem, but at least they solved their problem and came up with a correct solution. So they could be distinguished in that way. The next one, question answer. So there is a separate, circled, highlighted, something, final statement that clearly makes that clearly answers the original question. And so again, we talked about that. Sometimes word problems in math ask a very specific question, and the solution to the problem you set up doesn't answer that question. So I want the answer to the actual question in the problem. Their format, again, this is not a critical step, but they've chosen the specific form to submit their response in, and they're successful in submitting it. Okay. Their replies to their peers, again, this is a discussion, and so I want their posts and their methods shown there, and to be very specific with that as well. And so I want those to be shown in that way. Okay. So that's what an excellent submission looks like. I want them to demonstrate those things to me within their performance of this writing process. And then I'm just going to go down from there in each one, in each criteria. So in acceptable, well, parts of the writing inner diagrams are difficult to read or make sense of, or diagrams are missing even. So I'm splitting up that piece because I have a couple things included in the criteria, so I'm going to split up the description. The mathematics, there's holes in the logic or steps shown. It's holes in the steps shown, or no equation or diagram is provided, or no solution is clearly stated. And because of the way I set this up, with only my 3 categories, I have kind of a big room there with points. So the procedure, the process of solving a problem is not clear, or it's jumbled, or it shows a misuse of terms, or notation in the procedure jumps around in a non-logical format. So again, there's multiple things that could be wrong in their demonstration here to reach this level. A solution is provided that's very close to correct. Okay. The solution, so the question answered, the solution of the original question can be inferred. So they probably have it somewhere up in their work. They just didn't actually provide it as a separate statement. And so that's why this is 2 points compared to the total of 3. The answer's there, they just didn't set it aside as separately. So the middle format is not clear. They didn't choose the right file type to use to submit it, and so on. Replying to peers, only one reply is made. And I know that's a little bit of a count thing going on, but it's a discussion, and we're looking for replies to their peers, or potentially their replies to 2 people were not substantial in length or depth, and so they would have to work on that piece of that. In the last category here for the first criteria, unacceptable is their writing and diagrams are not even legible. That's unacceptable. They have to redo that. The mathematics involved shows a clear lack of understanding of the problem or any method to go about solving it. They were literally guessing, throwing darts at the wall at their solution. The procedure is shown, or no procedure is shown, simply an answer is provided, or no conclusion is drawn. And this is typically the way they start with these at the beginning of the class. They just kind of solve it really fast and come up with an answer. And there's nothing really shown in the procedure. They have to get used to writing about math. And so this is the biggest area where they grow in this, and their mathematics involved, of course. No solution is provided, 0 points. The original question is ignored. They don't even refer to it. The submission process, choices were not followed within the process of submitting. And for the discussion replies, they didn't do any replies. They forgot that step. And so here's my final overall rubric. And you can kind of see the process that I used to break these things down as I went through the descriptors for each criteria here in order to fulfill this rubric. And again, this was an early one that I did, and so we'll see how this rubric evolves as we work our way through the course here.